What if the only thing standing between you and stardom was your name? Some people get a lucky break. Others make one, starting with the name at the bottom of the poster. This is episode 4, the final chapter in the series, You Won't Believe Who These Names Belong To. If you missed the tales of fugitives, imposters, and kings in episodes 1, 2, and 3, catch up later. But first, let's play the Reinvention game. I'll give you the story, the struggle, and the turning point. And then I'll drop the name. You do know. Let's see how many you can guess before the reveal. He grew up in a small town in Minnesota, restless and searching. Robert Zimmerman played folk music in smoky bars and read poetry by the armload and annoyed his professors with cryptic answers and thick silence. That last one, probably more performance art than personality, but his name felt too plain for the vision burning inside of him. It didn't carry the weight of his words. So he borrowed one from a poet he admired. That's when Robert Zimmerman became Bob Dylan, a name that reshaped American music, one verse at a time. In the 1960s, those verses turned into anthems for a generation. Not everyone picks a poet. Some just drop a few syllables and rocket straight into legend. Thomas was raised in a devout Catholic home, one of 4 siblings. His father was an electrical engineer. His name sounded like English nobility, formal, long, and steeped in tradition. But he didn't come from nobility. But the name sure tried to convince you otherwise. When he hit Hollywood, it didn't fit the face or the energy. Too heavy, too proper, too much. So he simplified. The Roman numeral? Gone. The fire in the eyes? Still there. Thomas Mapother IV became Tom Cruise. He started making noise in the 80s and kept sprinting through Hollywood ever since. Now, for someone who didn't want to be mistaken for a certain famous actress with a similar name, her childhood was church choirs and gospel music. Her first album flopped, released under her birth name, Katheryn Hudson. But there was a problem. An actress named Kate Hudson already owned the spotlight. The world didn't need 2. So she rebranded completely. She dyed her hair black, slid into latex, shot whipped cream around the stage. Somewhere a youth group leader rethought their career. And she created a persona, equal parts glitter, rebellion, and bubblegum. Katheryn Hudson became Katy Perry. And in the late 2000s, when pop exploded in color, she was everywhere. Our next voice didn't need reinvention. Her voice already had it all, but the name? Yeah, that needed an upgrade. She grew up in Mississippi, singing in churches, married young, sang even younger. Her talent wasn't in question, but her name was forgettable. Faith Perry sounded like a small-town neighbor, sweet, but not a headliner. So she kept her first name and swapped the last for something simple, marketable, and unforgettable. Faith Perry became Faith Hill, one of the queens of country, and no one ever asked her to spell it twice. By the late 90s and early 2000s, her voice was a staple from Nashville to New York. Now, some name changes are strategic. Some are stylistic. This next one, it was about attitude. She was bold before bold was allowed. A theater nerd with piercing eyes and zero patience for niceties. Ruth Elizabeth Davis added a single letter to her nickname, not to soften it, but to sharpen it. The E didn't just make it sound refined, it made it memorable. Also easier to embroider on the back of a chair than Ruth Elizabeth Davis, and she became Bette Davis, a force of nature in Hollywood's golden age, from the 1930s into the 50s. And if you dared mispronounce it, she'd correct you with a stare that could curdle milk. Some name changes help you to stand out. Others are a matter of survival, especially if someone else already took your spot. He had a face for glam rock and a mind for reinvention, but his real name, David Jones, already taken by a monkey's teen idol. And if you're launching a genre-defining career, you can't be confused with a bubblegum pop singer. So he reached for something different, something theatrical, something celestial. David Robert Jones became David Bowie. Ziggy Stardust, the Thin White Duke, a name that belonged to every era and none. He carved his galaxy between the late 60s and the 80s, and left stardust all over pop culture. But here's the twist. After all this talk of reinvention, what if your name was so strange people assumed you must have changed it? And what if you hadn't? Ready? Say this out loud. Engelbert Humperdinck. Sounds like a cartoon character, right? But no, this was his real legal name, born and raised with it, and performed with pride. He didn't flinch. He didn't explain. Just walked on stage and owned it, with hits like Release Me and A Man Without Love, classics of the 60s and beyond. It didn't stop him from selling millions of records and becoming a Las Vegas icon. On the other hand, some names sound too polished to be real, but they are real. Another big name that wasn't engineered, Reese Witherspoon. Sounds like it came from a Hollywood name generator, but it didn't. Reese is her mom's maiden name, and Witherspoon is the real deal. Long before she won an Oscar in 2006, she was legally, officially, unmistakably Reese. Sometimes the name you think is made up is just what it says on the birth certificate, and sometimes the name generator wishes it had come up with that one. So, what's in a name? A little mystery, a little marketing, a dash of destiny. Whether they added a vowel or dropped a Roman numeral or launched a persona wrapped in glitter, each of them played the reinvention game and won. So, here's an ounce. You may not get to choose where you come from, but you can choose what name the world remembers. And that's it. An ounce submitted for your consideration. That's the finale of our 4-part name change series. We've unmasked fugitives, imposters, and stars. Catch all 4 episodes. You'll see the dates when they were released in the notes. Which celeb did you guess immediately? Which one surprised you? Drop it in the comments and let us know. Like, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks Engelbert Humperdinck was a Muppet. Thanks.